Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name's Larry O'Brien, Vice President of Research at ARC Advisory Group, and welcome to the latest installment of our ARC Sustainability Podcast. Today I have with me Kjell Raemdonck of Seeq. Good morning, Kjell.
Yeah, good morning, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're excited to hear what you have to say. I guess, Seeq is I guess I would qualify it as a data analytics company, but maybe to start off with, and just to give you some idea of what we're going to talk about here today, we're going to talk about the role of data in the rapidly changing area of sustainability for industrial organizations. So, Kjell, maybe to start off with, for our listeners who may not know, you could tell us a little bit about Seek and what they do and what you do within Seek.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kjell Raemdonck. I'm the Director of Partner Success with Seek. I've been here almost 5 years. I've been in customer success roles as well as this partnership role. Prior to that, I was a process engineer in oil and gas for about 10 years prior to joining the Seek team here. And at Seek, I think we really work on time series analytics, empowering subject matter experts with our platform, both from an analytics and monitoring perspective, infused with AI. We really believe in democratized access to data for kind of those plant engineers, reliability engineers, environmental folks that need to do the analyses and kind of drive change in their business.
Yeah, very good. I've known Seek for a long time, and I think Seek was kind of IoT, before IoT was cool, right? Sorting
Yeah.
through large amounts of data to try to pick out patterns and things. I've seen a lot of fascinating things from your company. But what we're here to talk about today is really the role of sustainability, right? And the role of data in sustainability, which is really crucial. So I guess to start off today, I'd like you to talk about, in your opinion, from Seek's perspective, what do you think are some of the essential elements that organizations need to address if they want to break down the inertia, right? If they're trying to start a sustainability program or where to get started, how can companies get started and put the essential elements in place in order to effectively reduce their operational emissions?
Yeah, for sure. When I think about sustainability, I think it's pretty well known that it's going to take, towards the journey of net zero, it's going to take both kind of a digital transformation wave and then some level of, capital investment to maybe optimize or change the process to reduce emissions or capture carbon. I think it was the World Economic Forum that said, 20% of emissions reduction by 2050 will be realized through digital transformation. For us at Seek, I think that's really our focus area is on that digital transformation space. When I think about it, it's really the key combination of the right data with the right people enabled by the right technologies. I just read your article, Larry, on kind of the system of systems approach for the sustainability challenge, and I couldn't agree more that there's not one single silver bullet that's going to address the sustainability challenge. It's really a variety of pieces coming together. And I think it's a phased approach, right? I think we really need to begin at the beginning of empowering the right people with access to the right data to create some level of visibility into the emissions to start with. And once you build an understanding of what your process's emissions are, you can really go towards more of a leading indicator approach where you can try to reduce emissions, make sure you stay below regulatory caps and drive change in the business. And I think why you need to start with digital transformation is because that level of visibility and change on that side can influence where to prioritize future kind of capital investments to really get your carbon down into the net zero kind of level.
Yeah, I know it's a very complex thing. We have a lot of data sources from a lot of different places, all in different formats that have to be kind of put into a common context. And I think in a lot of ways, these are challenges we've been dealing with in the industrial sector for a long time. But now, this sustainability thing has really brought everything to the forefront, and we must do this now.
Right.
Maybe you could give me some idea. If I'm an end user and I need to put these right elements in place, to tackle these sustainability challenges, how would Seek, go about helping me do that?
Yeah, I mean, Seek is really that platform for really the OT side of the business, industrial data analytics, and monitoring on process industrial data. Our philosophy for kind of that centralization of data, or I would think of it as democratized data access for your subject matter experts, is we do live connectivity to the data systems in place. So there isn't this large effort to move the data around or ETL it into a cloud data store before you can start getting value from the data. We kind of meet the customer where they are in their data journey. If the data is still in a historian on premise, if it's already in the cloud, or they have IoT sensors kind of directly putting data in the cloud, we have connectors that allow us to connect to 84 different types of data systems. Provides kind of live virtualized connectivity to those large data sets. And that really enables the SMEs to not worry so much about, where the data is or what format it might be in, or, transformation that they might need to do to the data. We do a lot of that on the back end with our connectors, and really just give the SMEs a playground to, get access to the data. We've got a bunch of point and click analytics tools and functions that allow them to really derive insights from the data. And then also to some degree, our extensibility angle at Seek is to really be interoperable with other systems in the enterprise kind of IT stack, so that the insights that those SMEs are deriving or context they're adding to the data sets can then be leveraged in other systems. So I'll give a couple of examples, with customers that we've worked with. Chevron, we worked with them on one of their refineries to just automate some of their greenhouse gas reporting. They're connected to their historian for the process data. Also, some of their emissions data is in their historian. But also, they've got data coming in from labs and vendors who do gas sample analysis and things like that. That's now being brought together in Seek. Automating that reporting allows them to not just do a quarterly review of their emissions, but now they can actually look at their emissions on a daily basis. So just virtualizing the data, centralizing it in one place is now giving them an opportunity to look at what are our emissions based on how we're operating. Then one of our other customers, Kinder Morgan, is then taking kind of that level to the next phase, where they go from the lagging indicator, which is visibility into emissions, to actually say, based on where I'm operating today, where is it trending looking forward? Am I going to, go above my regulatory cap, or am I going to go above the milestone kind of that I've set for myself in the future? And then finally, taking action. So Parkland Refinery out in Vancouver, they use Seek to look at some of their flaring events and really determining the root cause behind some of their higher flaring events. And that allowed them to just kind of nip that right at the source and reduce flaring overall. So you can kind of see how customers are leveraging Seek throughout this journey, moving from lagging indicator visibility to leading indicator, where are my emissions going to be, to actually taking action in reduction.
Yeah, and I think that ability to close the loop and actually allow, right, the end user to take action and see what's coming. I mean, that's where a lot of the value is. And I think those are great examples you just gave. I always love it when our guests can provide actual customer examples of what people are doing, because I think what's good about those examples is it shows how this data is coming from wildly disparate sources, right? That these never would have had to come together in the past,
Right.
And that's what ARC means when we talk about developing this industrial data fabric. So in our philosophy, you do need this kind of system of systems approach. You're plugging into all these different systems that you basically never had to plug into anymore. And in order to do that, you need to provide this sort of what we call a common data fabric, right? Can you tell us how Seek helps their end users, put together and implement this sort of common data fabric? Because I know some companies kind of have what they call a common data model and things like that. And, I think some of these kind of in the middle, data solutions can create a lot of overhead. But you mentioned that you had the ability to plug into data directly, which I think is kind of interesting. Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, it's the idea of centralizing the data in one place, but also making it look like it's uniform or it's not different necessarily is one of our key tenets at Seek, and that's kind of our underlying time series connector framework is, really just connecting to the source of record, wherever that may be, and understanding that it is a large investment to centralize data and move it around, right? I mean, you're talking about historians with 2.5 million tags, and that's just at one facility potentially. So, if you can think of a multinational that's got 60 data sources, that's a massive amount of investment and effort to try to centralize that into one, let's say, cloud repository. So for us, it's really important to just meet the customer where they are in that journey. We also understand that maybe not all of those 2.5 million tags are really critical to be moved, but they might be useful to some, use case at the facility level. So that's where our live connectivity to the data, leaving it in place, we feel like we really de-silo the data for the customer in Seeq. And then, I really believe in both kind of the de-siloing the data on the front end, so you can think of that as the raw data being collected in the field. But I also strongly believe in de-siloing kind of the context and the insights that are being generated by the folks that are manipulating it and working with the data. We don't want to get to a place where we maybe centralize the raw data, perform a bunch of analytics, find out a bunch of insightful things, but now it's sitting in a new piece of software that can't be communicated or seen by other pieces of software, right? And we don't want it to be insights siloed to a specific department in the company either. So that's where I think it's important to allow for ease of interconnectivity of insights. You can think of, SMEs are actually contextualizing a data set in Seeq for then machine learning or data scientists to leverage in machine learning initiatives, right, to kind of enrich models and things like that. Or, maybe the analytics insights being created in Seeq can be leveraged in enterprise kind of corporate dashboarding, which might be BI tools that they're already using or used to that rolls up with business data, right, that kind of can help collect and collate some of those things. So, that's kind of my tagline, I guess, is de-silo the data and de-silo the insights so that it can be leveraged more broadly in the organization.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. We have a lot of silos still. I kind of thought, in that great age of integration that we had, in the early 2000s, these silos would kind of break down, but they're still there. In a lot of industry sectors, I think they may even be worse, today than they
Right.
might have been in the past. But what you're talking about really does have the potential to break down these silos. Not just in terms of the data and the information provided, right, and turning data into this useful information, but breaking down, the people silos as
Yeah.
well. I think there's a lot of potential there. One of the things that we discussed before we got on this call was also, on this topic of making data more accessible and put it into better contextualization was open source tools.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about how Seeq is leveraging these open source tools and what they may be and how you're leveraging these, to help data become more contextualized and usable and understandable?
Yeah, for sure. I'll probably lead off this topic with, I think sustainability is such a large challenge that I think there's a natural need to be extremely collaborative around the solution to this. I think not every organization should try to reinvent the wheel kind of on their end, right? And I think that's where open sourcing solutions and toolkits that really advance potentially a whole industry forward and allow them to really take a step forward, I think is going to be a critical part of the path to success. It's actually something that I'm personally familiar with, in the upstream oil and gas industry in Canada, where I started my career. The oil and gas organizations have multiple times formed these alliances where they discuss specifically sustainability topics like water recycling and reuse. And now, of course, they're talking about the carbon impact of the oil sands through the Pathways Alliance. And so these types of collaborative groups where you've got, industry brain power coming together to talk about a common solution to a common problem, because they're all in it together. And I think the whole industry needs to move forward. And I think when you talk about sustainability, the whole planet needs to move forward together in the right direction. So an example of this in maybe the digital space is what the Open Hydrogen Initiative is doing for carbon tracking on hydrogen production. So they've kind of curated an open source toolkit that all the hydrogen producers can leverage. It's a toolkit that's curated for each of the different hydrogen production pathways. It basically is a spreadsheet that allows you to put in all the specifics of your facility, and then it kind of spits out a carbon intensity score or number for your facility. And so Seeq is a member organization of that initiative, and we're also partners with Capgemini in implementing this. And our angle in this space is, an Excel toolkit is great. Now you can do this analysis once a month, once a quarter, once a year, but we need to make this real time, right? We need to give people real time visibility into carbon intensity of their production. And that then facilitates what the Open Hydrogen Initiative is really hoping to accomplish down the road, which is kind of that hydrogen marketplace where every molecule that's bought or sold has a carbon intensity number attached to it. And I can certainly see a future in that where every commodity that's traded kind of comes with some level of carbon intensity score. So that's just an example of where a bunch of industry minds have kind of come together to curate this type of open source toolkit.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about this too is you're talking about really enabling this kind of inter-organizational, integration and collaboration, right?
Yeah.
And we see a lot more of that too. And I think that's going to be really a necessary thing moving forward, is not just, collaborating within your own organization, but within multiple organizations, whether it's through this hydrogen, emissions reporting initiative that you're talking about, or if it's, maybe you're part of an industrial cluster,
Right.
right? And you want to share information across the cluster about how much energy you're consuming, or maybe spread the balance of energy consumption out across the complex. But yeah, I think things like this are going to be increasingly important in doing that system of systems research that you mentioned earlier. And this kind of this stuff that we're doing with data is really going to be crucial, to allow that to happen. But aside from the data, and I know this has been kind of a ubiquitous discussion in the industry lately, but I know you have some really, down to earth things to say about this, and practical things to say about this is AI, right? So we see all the time about how AI is transforming our workplace. How do you envision AI influencing the way industrial organizations go about, approaching their sustainability efforts? And, what are some of the practical things kind of moving beyond the hype that end users can implement, to make this happen?
Yeah, for sure. Can't do a podcast in 2024 without sneaking in AI, right? I think
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah.
the hot button topic. I mean, for me, I think, AI is obviously a key accelerator to all of these initiatives. When we think about digital transformation, we've taken massive step changes in what AI can do for us. But I will say that it is not the solution on its own, or at least today, what we have is not, AI alone is not the solution to the problem. I think it's a catalyst in a variety of ways. I think it really accelerates, SME kind of efficiency and what they're able to accomplish, right? Spending maybe more time on solving problems, less time on discovering problems. I think it's also, there's a pretty well-known gap in knowledge transfer that, we've got large retirements that are happening and an extreme amount of industry experience that's kind of retiring out of the workforce. And so our workforce is getting younger. How are we ensuring there's knowledge transfer? I think AI can accelerate kind of what the younger and newer workforce is able to accomplish and know, because it can capture some of that legacy knowledge and impart it in those newer SMEs and upskill them much more quickly. And then finally, I think it's going to help really optimize some of our processes, maybe adding some scalability for, we know something small scale has an impact on sustainability. Well, now let's do it larger scale. I think AI can help with some of that. I think one example that I read about just in preparation for this podcast was, SAP's AI assisted solution have reduced kind of fuel consumption and emissions in logistics by kind of optimizing the most efficient routes and schedules. When you think about fuel usage and transportation around the world, which is obviously a large emitter or carbon intensive process. So I think that's an area where, AI guided by kind of human knowledge and context can certainly be a huge part of the solution. So those are kind of the three main areas that I see AI becoming an accelerator, but it certainly still involves the subject matter expert in the process.
Yeah, I agree. You still need the human in the loop. And you mentioned subject matter experts, and I just read about a major paper producer that's actually doing kind of the same thing. They're using AI to, I don't know if I'd call it a co-pilot, but it's essentially a large language model where they're, taking all the best experience of their operators and technicians. And some of these people are long retired, but they're going and
Right.
interviewing them
Hmm.
and asking them questions about, how do certain processes work and what's the best way to do X, Y, or Z, or, maybe you're doing operational procedures and things like that. Is
Right.
that something that you're working on with users right now? Is kind of distilling that wisdom, from workers and digitizing it and actually turning it into something that the workers can access just by, using it as a co-pilot and asking a question about how do I do procedure X? Is that
Yeah.
something is doing?
Yeah. So I think, at Seek, we've got kind of two, I would say, branches of how we're focusing on AI. I think one is more your typical kind of assistant, which you can think of as allowing users to use Seek more quickly, more easily, kind of getting to, more complex problem solving more quickly by allowing them as an assistant to help some of our tools. But the second focus is exactly sort of what you mentioned, right? How do we bridge that knowledge gap that does exist? How do we make sure that all the existing human context is leverageable by the individuals that are now kind of doing the monitoring? So, if there are standard operating procedures, data sheets, drawings, legacy documentation, or comments on alerts, right? So that if I'm an SME in a plant and I'm monitoring thousands of assets, and let's say one of my pump alerts flags, I could use the AI to actually give me some information about what are some past, maintenance activities that have happened on this specific pump. What's past context that's been written? Maybe someone has seen this alert before, done some investigation, and just said, don't worry about it because of, this and this other cause, different feedstock, different temperature, whatever that may be. One of our customers, Indorama, shared a quote with us, and I'll just kind of paraphrase the quote, but, the AI assistant in Seek, it just gave their SMEs who are new to analytics, the ability to work on advanced problems much more quickly than they had seen before. But more importantly, by suggesting kind of useful and accurate actions right away, they were able to focus more on solving problems and driving things forward rather than identifying and iterating on what the problem might be underlying it. And we hear that feedback from a fair amount of our customers who are starting to use our AI assistant. Some have said that their SME kind of learning curve or upskill time has been cut in half. And these are significant time gains that allow those folks to focus more on what really matters rather than some of the minutia of onboarding or getting up to speed or figuring out data issues or problems and those types of things.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard that it can really assist with onboarding too, right? Because
Yeah,
we've been talking about the labor crisis at ARC for 15 years now. I remember the first presentation I gave about, mass retirements in the workforce, and
right.
that was easily 15 years ago, and it's still happening now. So, anything we can do to reduce that onboarding and get some of these, the less experienced employees deserve access to the
Yep.
knowledge, that's there, and digitizing that knowledge is important. Um, well, um, we've talked about some of these examples of how users can take advantage of your AI capabilities. What's the best way to immediately take advantage of AI, right? Without getting, into a big project. Are there ways that users can kind of quickly take advantage of your AI capabilities to see, quick results rather than, embarking on kind of a significant, program where we're going to talk to all of our workers and digitize all, what's a good simple starting point for people?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I think this applies more broadly to, I think, the whole emissions reduction challenge. It's a big mountain that organizations have to climb, and it might seem a little bit daunting at first. And so, I think starting with small steps, and that's how we even introduced AI into Seek, was start with a small increment of let's focus on worker efficiency first. right? Get folks just more efficient in doing some of the day-to-day tasks that they would leverage Seek for in terms of building out a use case, building out analytics. Let's let them tap into not just the web, but also kind of existing experience on use cases that have been accomplished in Seek and how to build those out. That's a really nice starting point to just kind of get into that flow of using and leveraging AI to just accelerate what you're trying to accomplish. And then I think as you gain experience and grow kind of into the monitoring space, I mean, this is kind of a natural evolution that people tend to take anyway, is focus on troubleshooting a problem we have today. How can we solve that problem in the future? Then you establish sort of a monitoring workflow. And then I think, again, start with some of the low-hanging fruit. Don't try to monitor the whole plant tomorrow. Let's start with slices that are the most problematic or maybe the most cost impactful if there were issues, and leverage AI in that sense, in embedding that human context, accelerating the workflows, interrogating the system on what have you seen before? If I see an issue in this part of the facility, what are some of the known causes or known resolutions that I should be focusing on, and just keep kind of snowballing those small things into that broader initiative.
Can you tell us, does cloud computing and kind of the new paradigm of automation create some challenges for you? I mean, I know you're getting data from large data sets at the plant level. How does this new kind of IoT world of we have cloud and edge computing and so forth? How does that impact the Seek experience? I guess we should say.
I think I think right now there's still a very large appetite to just put the power of data and analytics in end users' hands. I think obviously the problems that they're trying to solve are just going to grow in complexity as they kind of start leveraging these systems. And so we're always at Seek looking at all the latest and greatest technologies. I mean, the way Seek is architected today is we leverage scalable cloud compute for our calculation engine that sits on the back end, so that we can scalably add more compute as is necessary, as users might be executing larger workloads, or if there's monitoring workloads that are kind of orchestrating on the back end, while other users might want to kind of just do some troubleshooting or an ad hoc analysis. I think that's maybe a key point where we see Seek still being a key piece of the workflow is when we get towards monitoring and some more of this autonomous type querying of data or alerting. There's still a very key piece where users need to trust the models that are underlying all the monitoring that's happening. And so with Seek, there's no kind of black boxes. It's the users are able to curate the calculations. They're able to look at alerts created by others and interrogate how the calculation was built really easily. All of this is interlinked quite well within Seek. So I think there's still a large aspect of user being in the workflow, needing to build that trust in what the AI or the systems are telling them. And so that's kind of core to our capabilities at Seek.
Yeah, in terms of, I guess, like knowing that the data that you're getting is good data, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have some mechanisms for data validation and data quality. Am I correct?
That's right. We do have some built-in functions that allow users to look at that. Yeah.
That's something that we don't talk a lot about. We talk a lot about data and the volume of data and problems of dealing with large volumes of data, but we don't talk about data validation and data quality and ensuring that the data that you're getting is good. So that's something I think that's worth bringing out too for people.
Yeah, and my opinion on that, to be honest too, is I think we can try to automate all these things as much as we like, but I think there needs to still be that domain context or domain knowledge on what is bad quality, or because a good example would be that you might get low flow alerts in certain places in the plant, let's say, but if you've turned down the facility because of whatever reason, it's explainable, right? And that's some of that human context that is then embedded.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you have any resources and places to go for our end user listeners that might be helpful for Seek or anything
Yeah, for
else you want?
sure. Anything, most of our resources are sort of Googleable. So you can kind of Google Seek and then, just type in the question or the resource that you might be looking for. Obviously, our website, seek.com, we've got a lot of really great resources on there, public testimonials, some great use cases and case studies that have been done over the years. We also have some great stories that we've collected from our conference Connect over the past few years, where customers will share stories of where they are in their journey with Seek that are also findable on the web.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I just want to bring this back around because I mean, sustainability was kind of the reason we had this discussion in the first place, right? I
Right.
mean, these again, I just want to reiterate these data, these data problems have been around for a while, but it is really this issue of sustainability where the users have to do a variety of things, whether it's regulatory compliance or you're voluntarily trying to eliminate your routine flare reductions, as part of the World Bank, initiative or what
Right.
have you. It is really this issue of sustainability that has brought this data accessibility and this data looking at these reams of data from many disparate different sources and really having to put them together into a common context to do things like reporting and process
Mhm.
improvement and closing the loop. This is the thing that's really making this all happen. And of course, we appreciate your words today about Seek and what you're doing to help end users, enable this and put all this into place. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And just to recap, we've been talking with Kjell Raemdonck of Seek about how Seek can help you as an end user put your data into a more useful common context and provide you with a pathway to a sustainability future. So thanks once again for joining us, Kjell.
Yeah,
And
thank
I
you.
think if our users are interested in finding out more, they can go to www.seek.com. That's seeq.com. And if you're interested in finding more about ARC, you can go to www.arcweb.com, ARCWEB. So once again, thanks for joining us, Kjell. We look forward to seeing you very soon in the future.
Thank you very much.